Hi.
Hi, Felix.
Hi, Wes.
How are you?
It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I got to see the movie early, and I'm absolutely astounded.
You did. You saw it. Cool. I mean, no one's really seen this thing before, so I'm curious what people think. You know.
Well, in short, I absolutely loved it. I'm a big fan of the Caesar trilogy, and I loved what you done with it. Even though I was a huge critic earlier because I wasn't actually sure that we needed more movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I can say I absolutely loved it, and I want
That's
5
great.
more.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. These movies are, they're bigger than any one actor, director, whatever. There's this long legacy of these stories. There's so much story to tell, you know? So it's like, it was kind of the only way to go forward, I think, is just to start a new chapter in this long, crazy, franchise. But I'm glad you liked it. That's great.
Absolutely. How important is it for you to shoot on location and use practical effects in your movies? And how much do visual effects factor into your style of storytelling, especially with a movie like this that relies so heavily on VFX on its main characters?
Yeah, there's obviously this, in the world today, a lot of the commentary is, it's practical, it's all, miniatures or whatever. I'm not a part of that. I grew up with the whole CG kind of revolution. So I love visual effects, especially when they're used properly. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of myself an old kind of frustrated VFX artist. So, I already knew enough to be dangerous with this stuff, but this thing, is a whole new realm. It's the absolute bleeding edge of what Weta is capable of on the CG route of things, With that said, it always helps to be in a real environment. That's what I strive for. I don't like being on set for the most part, if I can help it. It's something nice about being out in the real world with the real sun and real bugs and dirt in your fingernails, and you're racing the sun, and nothing's going your way, but there's an energy and a life that kind of finds its way onto screen, I think. You know what I mean? And in a weird way, because you're shooting something for real, even if it all gets replaced, by CG, which a lot of it did in our case. It keeps visual effects honest. It shows you what a real image looks like and what we have to kind of live up to. And so we strive really hard to shoot in real environments. And I think just subconsciously, audiences have been sort of, they understand the language of cinema intuitively. And so when you're out in a real location with real camera work, you can tell when a camera is real or not. And I think that's just, we take that in and it becomes real for us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I love the score in this movie, and having worked with John Paisano on the Maze Runner movies, was there a special talk you had with him or a note that you gave him on what types of emotions you as a director and storyteller would like to evoke in audiences?
Yeah, I mean, John was probably one of the first guys I talked to, like almost 5 years ago when we first started this thing. And I kind of told him two couple small things, It's like, one is like, you got to have a little bit of DNA from Jerry Goldsmith. You have to go there, right? We're on our way towards that 68 version, so it's got to have a little bit of that thing. But you also, because we're still kind of tied, we have one foot still in that Caesar trilogy, you got to figure out how to bring in some Michael Giacchino's themes into this thing too, and how you evolve those. And the rest of it is all yours. You know what I mean? And that's where you got to bring in his own kind of sensibility and style into it. But you can hear, I think, like fans of scores, they're going to hear a little bit of Jerry Goldsmith, they're going to hear a little bit of Michael Giacchino, and they're going to hear a lot of John Paisano and just all the kind of the stuff that he brings to this movie. And I think it was a big deal for John. He put a lot of love and care into this thing. And as you've heard, there's a lot of like great little homages, I think, to this long, legacy of these movies,
The casting is incredible across the board and really helps to tell the story. I was especially surprised by how well the new ape characters played by Peter Macon and Owen Teague were able to really get me nostalgic about Caesar's legacy in this movie. When was it clear to you that Kingdom would absolutely work as a successor to the previous films instead of a full-on reboot?
Yeah, that was early on, honestly, when I was first asked, what would you do with the next Planet of the Apes, and I had my doubts about like whether you needed one or not. But when we kind of immediately just went for it and said, we're going to start a new chapter, it's going to be new characters, it felt right because it opened up all these new opportunities where we weren't kind of in a weird way limited by what came before. We got to stand on top of that stuff, on top of their shoulders, and kind of build a new type of story. Like you've seen, it's a different tone this time. It's a bit more of an adventure. Whereas those previous movies were very much about the end sort of humanity, the end of Caesar. This is very much a new beginning. This is like a new chapter in kind of the ape legacy, and just watching how they're evolving and marching through as it becomes a planet of apes. You know what I mean? So early on, that was the right move for me. That we wanted to acknowledge and honor sort of what came before, and that includes all the previous movies, not just the previous trilogy, but all the movies. But at the same time, try to do our own thing so that people had something kind of new to enjoy. It felt right to us from the very beginning. We'll see if audiences accept it.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope to see more movies. I'm being told to wrap up. I'm so glad that you had the time, and I hope you will be the director for many more movies.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. Thanks, Felix. I appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.